Drop the beat, man. Here we go.
Drop that
The
beat.
podcast. Let's bust the flow. Everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Life Speaks.
Yeah.
And we're glad you're rocking with us because we're rocking with you.
Yeah.
So glad you're with us tonight. And so my name is Luis Perez, a.k.a. Guicho Breach, a.k.a. Demon Killer, and my co-host is...
Casey
and so,
Valdez.
yeah, Casey. And before we get started, Tennessee representative. And he's not part of the Memphis 10. No, he's living for Jesus.
Amen.
And before we get started, I just want to give a shout out real quick to our sponsors.
510 Architecture and Design.
Yeah.
Daniel Martinez.
Daniel
you know
Martinez.
How it is.
Yeah.
He's got your back.
Daniel
like
Martinez, a.k.a. the Chameleon.
Yes, the Chameleon. He blends in well.
And of course, want to give a big shout out to the Choosing Hope Foundation. And
Amen.
so the Choosing Hope Foundation, if you don't know, it's rooted not entirely but primarily in the prison ministry, parole ministry. I don't know if I mentioned that last podcast, but it extends further into helping people, working with people, homelessness, battered women, just all kinds of different dynamics of life where people need help, and we embrace that, work with them to help them, through the church. Yes, the preaching of the gospel, Jesus Christ, salvation, but also to help them get established in society as
people from all corners of the
all
block.
corners of the world and all over the place. But to help them be good members of society and just help them contribute back and stuff. But that is the Choosing Hope Foundation. And then, of course, I want to give a shout out to CFM, Christian Fellowship Ministries. That's the fellowship that we're a part of. And, of course, the Potter's House Christian Church. That's the name of the church and stuff. And so tonight we have a special guest. And the last podcast y'all heard was... Camilo Perez, and so tonight we have his better half, the other piece, and that is his wife Lulu Perez. And so, Camilo's testimony, powerful. If you haven't heard that episode, that podcast on Camilo,
You need to hear it.
You need to hear it. I would say hear it first before you jump into this one. But it kind of is going to bring a fuller picture of a lot of the stuff that he said, and going further into the dynamic of ministry and stuff, but very powerful stuff. And so we just want to welcome Lulu here tonight. We're glad you're with us.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
and we're going to hear things about her life that she went through leading up to their salvation and stuff. And so what I want, Lulu, so first is just go as far back as you want and just talk about your childhood, growing up, things of that sort, and then we'll take it from there into you growing up.
So I first, I'm from Corpus. I was born and raised in Corpus. Went to school in Corpus. I grew up in a single mother home. My mother left my father when I was a few months old. I'm a twin sister, had two other siblings that she was trying to raise. And
Do you know the reason for that? Why they separated?
Yeah. My mom has always been open about it. My father was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and he was very abusive.
Oh, wow.
I know that my other siblings saw that and maybe had even been, abused as well, hit and things such as that. I was very young, so I never saw that. I never experienced any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the reason that's the main reason why my mom left.
You're saying abuse was a consequence of the drugs and the alcoholism was because of that they were being abused and things
Yes.
of that sort.
I know, my older sibling, my mom has mentioned that there was some, hitting and things like that. I know that my mother, she was very open, like I said, talked about his drug usage and things such as that, infidelity and just, it wasn't a good marriage.
So when you were born, he wasn't there no more?
No.
So he was gone before you were born?
He was there to name us, and then he wasn't really there.
What was what in your perspective, I mean, as you think back on your life, progressing, moving forward, I mean, what do you think was the biggest impact that you experienced, maybe looking back saying it was because I didn't have a father?
I think my mom did the best that she could. Like, my mom is an awesome mom. She's my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves their mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mom had her hands full. She was trying to raise us, put food on the table, and discipline us. Mm-hmm. And we were a handful. Mm-hmm. And I think, she definitely needed help disciplining us. By any means, I was probably not, the ideal child. I gave her a pretty good hard time.
Mm-hmm.
I talked back to her. I remember at the age of 8, I was throwing the finger at her, cussing at her.
Oh, wow.
Even when I was in elementary, we would give her a hard time to even go to school. Mm-hmm. And she knows, she remembers. And I say that even to this day, like, that's why she has a lot of gray hair, because of me. And then there was 4 of us and 2 of us at once. So it was a pretty hard thing for her to raise all 4 of us and then bring home money to pay the bills. Yeah. On top of that, she was also taking care of my elderly grandmother for a good portion of the time. And so,
what part of your life do you think would have been different? Would your dad been involved?
Had my dad been the man that God intended him to be, disciplinary, bringing home the bacon type of man, I probably wouldn't have acted the way I acted. Mm-hmm. I probably wouldn't have been cussing at my mom, throwing her the finger at age 8. I probably, would have not needed as much discipline because.
Could you identify even as a child that I don't have a dad, that's why you would act out, or was it just the fact that you didn't have a dad, or did you know, like, where's my dad? Yeah.
When we were young, he would come in and out of the picture up until we were about 5 or 6 years old. I remember him trying to come around every now and then, but not like consistently. And then when we were about, after that, we never saw him. My sister and I saw him one time as we were walking down the street, walking past a bar, and he came out to come, I guess, talk to us. And my sister and I were like, we ain't trying to have nothing to do with you. And we took off running from him.
Oh, wow.
We didn't want to talk to him. We were angry.
Yeah.
I know from my perspective, I was angry.
How old were you at that time?
I was 12.
Okay. Oh, wow. Have you ever had a relationship with him?
Later, yeah, I did end up talking to him later. I think I was about 23. We found out that he was sick. He had cancer, liver disease, and he was going to die.
Is that rooted from his drinking?
Actually, he progressed further than, just drinking. He was a hardcore heroin user.
Oh, okay.
And so his liver disease was because of his heroin use.
Oh, wow.
That transformed into like hepatitis and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so I remember seeing him in the hospital, just a shell of a man, not the man that I remember seeing when I was younger. I mean, to me, he was, I don't want to say a beautiful man, but he was, he had nice hair, nice skin. He was handsome. And when I saw him in the hospital that day, he did not look like the man I remembered.
Did y'all reconcile at that point, or was it kind of just like we're seeing him?
I ended up talking to him later on after he got out of the hospital, and I talked with him a while, and, he talked with me on the phone, and, in my heart, I had kind of like forgiven him for not being around.
How old were you at this time now?
I was about 23. Oh, okay. And I figured like at that point, maybe there would be some more opportunities to excuse me, to be with him or to talk to him anymore, to make some kind of relationship. But shortly after that, he ended up dying.
Oh wow!
And I know it was because of the drug use. You know, he had already succumbed to all of that. And so the next time I saw him, he was in his at the funeral and in the casket. So.
And what I mean, did you have any last words with him or anything like that?
No, the last time I talked to him on the phone, those were the last words.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Did you have any like feelings toward him, any kind of emotion or anything at the funeral?
I was sad, of course, and regretful that I hadn't tried to reach out to him more. And I wasn't angry at that point. I was more frustrated because I wanted to have a relationship with him.
Yeah, you were like lamenting the missed relationship, like you could have had a relationship, but it was too late by then.
Yeah.
How did that affect you? I mean, going into school and stuff. I mean,
so looking back at it now, I see that even at a very young age, I was always boy crazy, wanting to seek out boys and their like wanting to seek out their, I don't know if there was their affection or approval or whatever, just wanting to seek out something for them. And I remember talking to little girls in school and just like having a crush and like just looking to the boys, you know what I mean? And even at an early age, I remember, you know, I was very young when I lost my virginity. And I really didn't have a male figure in my life. My brother, you know, he was involved, and he was 8 years older than us. You know, he was already growing up and doing his own thing. And so he wasn't really involved with what we had going on either. And so I didn't really have anyone to, you know, steer me away from that. My mother was a single mom. You know, she was out there doing the single life, you know. But, you know, she was trying her best. You know, she was still bringing in money, paying the bills, you know, providing for us and everything. We never went without. But, you know, I was always looking for some kind of boy's approval.
If you don't mind me asking, I mean, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but how old were you when you lost your virginity?
I was 12.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I was 12, and that year was a crazy year because I started, that was the same year that I started doing drugs. I started smoking that year, too. And it was with boys.
Yeah. And it was all I mean, you can identify looking back right now, you know, and we've spoken about this before, like with other people's lives, is like, you know, we always say about the importance of a father's involvement in their daughter's life because, you know, your involvement, your affection towards her, you embracing her it keeps her away from looking for that from someone out in the world and stuff. And can you identify looking back, like even to the point of losing your virginity at such a young age I was looking for something to be fulfilled in me that I should have gotten from my dad, but I didn't.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, my mother loved us to bits. I mean, there was a lot of love in our home. Like, she never once, you know, made us feel bad about ourselves or, you know what I mean? Like, she supported us whatever we were trying to do, you know.
I mean, and we hear a lot about that, man, about kids getting involved in sexual stuff real young, but it's like hearing you say, like, 12 years old, it's like, dude, that's a kid. That's a little child.
Yeah. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand it. You know, I thought it was okay, but, you know.
So 12 years old.
Looking back now, there's no way I would want my child or anybody else's child at that age
you
to
look
be
at our
doing
kids.
the things that I was doing.
Yeah, our kids are like, my son, my oldest son is 14, and he's like a little kid, like a little child. And it's like, you know, I'm hearing you say that. I'm like, whoa, you know, and it's just pretty sobering. Like, dude, like, and, you know, and to interject this into the podcast here, dads, get involved, man.
Step your game up.
Get involved, man. And laters for all this machismo, this I'm too busy, whatever. You have to be involved in your daughter's life. You have to show them affection. You have to hug them. You have to kiss your daughters. You have to embrace them because, you know, and I mean, I'm sure we're going to hear it tonight. I mean, and so 12 years old, you're in elementary school? Or what? I mean,
I was in middle school.
So, I mean, how did this progress?
Mind you, I had boyfriends before that. I mean, I had boyfriends all before that. This was just my serious boyfriend, you know.
Yeah.
But I was 12 years old, went through middle school. I was with that guy for a little bit, and then stepped away from that relationship. I still had boyfriends here and there, but I never really involved myself with that.
Yeah.
At that point, you know.
Where does a young girl, like, I mean, I'm sure this will benefit a lot of parents. Where does a young girl, like, that young, you know, saying had boyfriends before, get the idea or the notion of boyfriends?
Well, I think there was a lot of partying going on that I saw. You know, I don't want to name names or anything, but I did see a lot of partying. Not directly in my home, but, you know, people coming home from the clubs. Sure. I had older siblings, you know what I mean? Like, I would see that, and I wasn't totally blind to that. You know, I knew that there was other things that were going on outside of there. You know, I saw the bottles in the house, you know.
So I mean, you know, I guess the balance would be, I mean, not balance, but I guess the two sides of the token is your mom trying her best, single mom trying to be a mom, I mean, she has a son, so she's trying to be a mom to the girls, and then she's trying to raise a boy, trying to be mom and dad to this boy, this son. I guess she tried her best, but I guess to a degree you weren't, correct me if I'm wrong, would you say you weren't sheltered enough?
I think it was hard for her to shelter us.
Like, it wasn't her fault. I mean,
no.
It's just that she could only do so much. I mean, she's just one woman.
Yeah, I mean, at that time in middle school, she was working a full-time job, not even in the city. She was having to travel outside of the city, take 45 minutes to get there. She would leave in the morning. The sun wasn't up. She'd come home at night, and the sun was already down.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of time for us to mess around and do things that she didn't know that we were involved in.
So she didn't know of anything that y'all were doing?
No, she didn't know.
Which shout out to Lulu's mom.
Single moms because...
Yeah, single moms, but, you know, it's tough, man. And I have a lot of respect, I would just say this, for single moms. And to hear that, I've never heard, I mean, I know Lulu's testimony, I've never heard her say these things about her mom. A newfound more respect for her mom and all single moms, because it's not easy, man. It's not easy. And so what? This is middle school. How did this progress?
Well, like I said, and before I go on, sorry, Mom, about all the stuff I put you through.
Shut up.
Please forgive me, Mama. But I tell her all that all the time. Yeah, so in middle school, I was already involved in smoking. You know, boys had already been a thing, you know, and then I started drinking very shortly after. You know, not all the time, but I remember I was 15 and I drank on my 15th birthday. I had a bottle of Jack Daniels, and we only had a little bit of time before my mom was going to get home, so me and my sister chugged it. I remember her pulling up to the front of the house, and I was in the restroom throwing it all up. Because I was already all buzzed and drunk. Yeah. So, but yeah, it progressed pretty quickly.
Was you drawn to like when like the guys? Was you drawn to like the partiers and whoever would have the alcohol and whoever would have the?
You know, we grew up in the hood. Okay. You know, the side of town that my mom lived in, that we lived in. Still, my mom lives there in that same house. Wasn't a good side of town. You know, there was drugs and alcohol and all that readily available, and it was just a
whoever
thing.
And gonna have a good time.
Yeah, and there was a few boys that were always around. They were our age, and they were always around, and you know, had access to things like that, and we took advantage of it, and I'm sure they took advantage of us partying with them and things like that. But when I went to high school, you know, it just kind of followed along with me. My freshman year, I ended up getting kicked out of class because I was being rude to the instructor, the teacher, and that I was sitting outside in the hallway, and I saw this dude. You know, my older sister. I always wanted to be like her. I looked up to her. You know, not putting any blame on her or anything, but you know, as a little girl, little boy, you always look up to your older siblings, right? And I looked up to her, and she was with a lowrider guy, and I always looked at those guys like in awe, you know, like I thought that was so cool, you know, they drive these lowrider cars and things like that. And so I remember in high school, I saw this guy, and he was a lowrider. He looked more cholo, you know, and so I was like, cool, like I'm gonna go holler at him. Like at that point, I wasn't scared to, you know, I was cool. Like I'll go holler at him, whatever. And so I ended up talking to this guy, and he was all for it, and so we started dating, whatever. We were together for about 4 years, and you know, he was nice to me in the beginning, and then shortly after, I found out that he had started talking to another girl, and I found out because I had stayed the night at his house. Again, I was already involved in fornication again with him because he was one of my serious boyfriends, and so I found out because I answered the phone and this girl was on the line. Well, and mind you, we would party. Like, we would drink, we would smoke. You know, he was all for that, too. And so I was cool with that because, you know, I was about that. Mm-hmm. And so I answered the phone, and he's there talking to this chick on the phone, like, being all sweet. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, I'm here. Like, what's going on, right? Well, I took out, you know, the rolling pin for the tortillas, and I just hit him in the back. Mm. And he, me and him just start boxing, just going at it. And so that just took our relationship to this whole other level that I had never experienced. Wow. You know, like I said, in my house, there was none of that because my dad was gone. And, you know, I never saw that in my house.
So what, it became an abusive relationship?
Exactly. It
You stayed with this guy?
Yeah. And I had only been with him for maybe like 6 months at that time.
Why? Okay, and so here's a question for you that I've sought to get answered before, given this dynamic is experiencing that dynamic abuse, physical abuse. Why did you stay?
I think part of it was because he would always lure me back in, tell me, you know, that he loved me and that he wasn't going to do it again. You know, just try to sucker me back in.
You wanted to hear.
And so I fell for it lots and lots of times. And I thought that he was great. Like, I thought he hung the moon or something. I don't know. I just thought that he was so awesome. And, I mean, looking back at it now, he wasn't all that great. Like, it was not great.
Yeah.
And I was pretty stupid at that point.
Did you ever feel like, I need to get away, but I can't? Yes,
I did at one point. Yes. So back then he was staying with his mom. This dude was just all over the place. He had his own issues. You know, his mom and dad were divorced, and he had a bunch of issues that he had needed to deal with. And so then he went back with his dad. And then so I was going back and forth. I would walk all over Corpus Christi, wherever this dude was at. I was blistered on my feet, walking all over. My mom was just like going crazy, like, you need to stop all this. But I remember I would walk almost every day, 13, 14 blocks from my mom's house to his house, back and forth, middle of the night. And at one point, we had gotten into it, and he busted my nose. I have a scar because of it. I called my mom, told her to come get me. She came and got me. The next day, I was walking back over there, like stupid, like just, and he had actually came and got me, and so we were walking back, and the whole time he's just putting me down, telling me all kinds of nonsense, and I just remember like choking myself, like literally my hands around my throat, trying to choke myself, wanting to die because I was just so tired of it, like just tired of the whole situation, tired of being involved in all of this. And
how old were you there?
I was 16.
So that was, okay, so you said 4 years with this guy. So how old were you at the end of the relationship?
I was 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I started dating him when I was 14, and I was 17.
So what finally broke you loose?
Well, I remember that time. I remember crying out to God at that point. Like, I remember.
So you cried?
At that point, I remember crying out to God.
Did you have any kind of religious or?
I mean,
background of any
we grew
sort?
up right next to the Catholic Church, so I knew about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew the significance of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing them do this act where they would like have somebody carry the cross down the street, like on Palm Sunday or something like that. And I remember seeing that and wondering, like, what is that? And my mom tried to send us to catechism. We just kept going. We never went. But, you know, I knew that Jesus, there was a Jesus. But I never knew the significance of him. And I just remember crying out to God. Like, I just figured there had to be a God.
What was the dynamic of your crying out? Like, what was your plea like?
I wanted to die.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be away from this situation.
Did you ask him to take you?
Yeah, I was just like, God, get me out of here. And so I kept walking. We went back to his house. And then I think the next day we got into it again.
So you went back?
Yeah, I did. After my nose was busted, it was my junior year. The next day was yearbook photo day, and I didn't go because I was not going to go with a busted nose, black eyes, and everything. But I went back to his house. You know, and at that point, he was already telling me, like, nobody wants you. Nobody's going to want you. You know, telling me all this negative stuff, you know,
horrible.
putting me down as far as anybody could put you down. At that point, my family wasn't, like, they were tired of it already. Like, I had already put them through so much, the back and forth with him, and they just couldn't understand it either. They had pretty much disowned me. When I tried to go back, they wouldn't even talk to me. But, you know, they were done with it too. So I went back, and then finally I just couldn't be there anymore. I was like, what am I doing? And my mom told me something that stuck with me. And she told me, I left your dad for this reason, so y'all wouldn't be around all that. And here you are, putting yourself in this situation.
At such a young age.
Yeah, so, and it stuck with me. So I'm sitting there thinking about what she told me, and I just said, okay, I'm done. I can't be here anymore. I left, went back home. He would still try to call me. And I said, no, I'm done. I can't. I cut him off totally. Every time he would try to call, I just wouldn't even give ear to it. I think he came by once, and I just let him have it. Like everything that I had been having inside of me, I just let him have it. Yeah. So
how soon or how much later after that did, I guess, Camilo come into the picture?
So it had been a few years after, like probably 2 years after that. So after that, because he had put me down so much, and so I felt so bad about myself, I couldn't get myself out of that funk. You know, I was drinking, I was smoking.
Trying to drown on that?
Yeah, and I had a job, so I had money. You know, I had a part-time job that I was working at a telemarketing firm, and so I was, you know, making money. So I had money to buy weed, I had money to buy drinks, and shortly after that, I was hitting the clubs. I had, like I said, I have an older sister. We look very similar, and I took her ID. She had got a new ID, so I took her old ID, and we were hitting the clubs. I was getting in at 18. No, I was getting in at 20, I think. And
was you with friends or with your twin sister too?
I was with my friends from high school, and I was with my twin sister.
Oh, okay.
She was using the same ID too. And so we were just hitting the clubs. And soon after that, my sister turned 21. I turned 21. You know, I didn't have those X's on my hands no more.
Well,
so we were hitting the bar, and I was basically telling that dude, you know what? I don't care what you say. I'm wanted. You know, these men out here want me. And out there in the club, the way that, you know, if men are, you know, like you, and they're buying you drinks. You know, you're shaking whatever you got, and they're going to buy you drinks. And so was my validation. You know, I was getting drinks free. You know, I would take $20 in there, and I didn't pay for nothing. You know, ladies get in free, whatever. I didn't have to pay for nothing. I was getting drinks.
So would you say that I mean, I've talked, I've dealt with a lot of women through the ministry and stuff, and I know this is something that's kind of difficult for them to kind of acknowledge. But do you believe that promiscuity became an issue in your life?
Oh yeah, by far. Once I started drinking as much as I was, and going to the clubs as much as I was, there was no boyfriend having no more.
Yeah.
I was, one night stand almost,
Yeah.
and every month or whatever. Like it was not a big thing. I would meet a dude, we'd be together, I'd go on to the next one.
From the world perspective, from a worldly perspective, what did that do to your? I guess in the time that you're living in this dynamic, did you feel like what did it do to your self-esteem? In the dynamic of that worldly mindset, did it benefit your self-esteem? What did it do to your integrity, your dignity? Are those things that you even thought about, or do people think about that? Like from a girl's perspective?
Yeah. So from an at the moment perspective, I'm all that, like I'm living it up. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
But then when reality hits and, you have to pay the consequences for your actions.
Sure.
It wasn't all it was chopped up to be, I remember blacking out a few times, waking up, from a night before, and where am I? Who was in here with me? Like, I don't know. And those are moments that I'm not proud of.
And at this point, I think that's what you're saying is powerful. Before you go further here, what would you say to that young lady right now, like that's viewing, that's watching, that might be 17, 16, 17, 18, 19, going, what would you say to her to say, like, look, man, I've lived it. It's a mistake.
Yeah, it's definitely a mistake. You don't want to get involved with that. The men that you are out there with don't love you. They don't love you. God loves you. And he doesn't want to see you in the position that you're putting yourself. And God's love surpasses any love that any person can give you. The person that you think loves you the most, God's love does not meet that. It far surpasses that. And once you experience God's love, you'll never know. That's when you know what true love is. Mm-hmm. That's when you know the true love of Christ. That you'll never find that in the world. You'll never find that in the world, in a man, in a woman, in drugs, in alcohol. You'll never find that in the world.
So that's that void that you can never feel, right?
Yep.
And so you're dealing with the consequences here. You're saying, okay, the reality of dealing with the consequences of that life.
Yep.
What's going through your heart, mind at the end of now you're dealing with consequences of this stuff?
Well, at that point is when I kind of decided that I need to stop messing around. But not in the sense of I need to stop messing around, like
salvation.
I need to settle. Yeah, not in that sense. I need to settle down. That wasn't in my head. I need to settle down. I need to maybe just be with one man. Just be with one person, not be messing around with 3 or 4 guys at a time. I just need to be with one man, and then that's gonna help resolve some of the issues that I was experiencing. And so I started talking with Camilo, and
how did you meet him?
So Camilo and I met the summer of it was my freshman year, because I had hooked up with that dude and I started skipping school. And I skipped my first period all the time because it was first period and who wants to go to 8 o'clock class. And my boyfriend just lived right down the street, so it was very easy to get to his house and not go to the first period. And so that was my math class, my algebra class. So lucky for me, Camilo was skipping that class too, and we met in summer school to make up for our failure in that class. And so we met, but I was with that dude, and I was telling him, nah, I don't want to have nothing to do with you.
So Camilo tried to holler at you.
Yeah, he tried to holler at me. He got me to take his friends out of school, like, out of class, because he had some passes.
So how was
some office passes.
So how was Camilo when he was trying? How was Camilo when he was trying to holler at you? He was like, "Yo, what's up, baby?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he was like, "Hey, what's up?" I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember what I said.
He was like, "Yo, what's up, man? For real." You know,
What'd you say?
I was very vulgar, and I told him I already got something.
Yeah.
I don't need what you got. I got it.
Yeah.
And so, but I was very vulgar about it. You know, cuss words and everything. Like I used to cuss pretty bad. But so anyways, but we were, you know, still friends for the few times that we attended class. But I didn't even finish summer school, and so I skipped out on that. Never saw him again until a few years later. And I was like, "Ooh, there's that dude. I'm single now." And
this is what? How old are you now?
I was 17.
A few years later.
18. Yeah, I was 18.
Okay.
And so I'm in high school, and I'm like, oh, okay, there's that dude, because he showed up at my high school. Like, what are the odds he shows up at my high school? And but then I see him come around the corner with his pregnant girlfriend, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's not gonna work. Like, that's not gonna happen. Like, what's up with that? You know, okay, whatever, right? So I didn't even bother with it. Well, later on, Corpus is a very small town. I told you I was working at the telemarketing firm. Turns out his pregnant girlfriend was working at the same place and was on my sister's team, and they got to be good friends. Well, my sister has friends. That means they're my friends. And so his and her apartment was the party place. And I like to smoke, and I knew they were going to be smoking over there, so I went over there to go smoke.
So when Camilo was talking about on his interview about his apartment being the party place and having friends over, you were one of those friends over.
That's right.
Friends.
I was there.
See how everything's coming together.
Now, mind you, I had an ID that I could buy liquor with. So I was in there.
So you were that
liquor.
friend they wanted there.
Exactly.
She was contributing.
I was buying the beer. You know, they're handing over the cash, and I just go get me the beer. Get all the beer for the party.
Was you hustling? You know, like, hey, I'll go get the beer, but you got to, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm going to drink with y'all. So anyways, but yeah, so we met up again, essentially as friends at that point. But shortly after his baby mama fell apart, you know, that situation fell apart, like you said. I was a babysitter. My mom, and my sister were the babysitters, and so I would see him at the clubs every now and then, because at that point I was full force in the clubs, going to the clubs, Friday, Saturdays, you know, every day that the club was open, I was there. And so I would see him at the clubs, and I'd be like, "Hey, have you got to see your daughter?" And he was like, "Nah, she don't let me see her, or, you know, I don't get to see her, or whatever." And I was like, "Well, I babysit her. If you want to see her, you know, I'll get your phone number. I'll call you whenever she comes by." And so I called him a few times, and so he came a few times and got to see her, because that was something I had a heart for, because...
the mom didn't know?
No, she didn't know, no. And sorry about that. But I had a heart for that because my brother had been done like that. You know, his son had gotten taken away from him as well. And and from us too, you know, I never got to see him, so I felt bad about that. But so I, you know, got him in touch with her or whatever, just so he could see her. And then eventually I stopped being the babysitter because I was too involved in partying, and I didn't want to stop partying and babysit. Who wants to do that when they're 19? But anyway, so I kept going partying, and I would see him every club. You know, I would see him all the time, and I already knew what they were involved in. You know, they were drinking, they were partying, they were smoking. And they weren't smoking little joints. They were smoking big, fat blunts. So I was like, yeah, I'm there. And so then him and his friends were there, and like, where y'all going to go? We'll go meet up with y'all. So I'd go meet up with them, me and my homegirls, and then my homegirls were hooking up with his homeboys, and so on and so on. And so and I know I remember putting it off, and I was like, nah, you know, your baby mama's my friend. He's like, she's not your best friend. Come on, you know, try to smooth talk me. Eventually, it worked. But
you're like, I gave in.
Yeah, I did. I gave in.
Persistence.
Yes, he was very persistent. And I remember the first time I did give in. I finally, you know, said, I guess I have a crush on him. You know, I like him. I showed up there and I had just drank like so much. I was so wasted. And the thing that I guess really like stuck with me was that he was taking care of me. And I had never felt like that before. Everybody else had treated me poorly or just whatever with me and then took off. But this time he was going to take care of me. And I was like, wow, that's not like normal for men to do that.
What was the difference that you saw in that dynamic, like from previous relationships to where it was like, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, and I don't know if you can relate. I mean, if you can kind of like attest to this, but I'm saying like, to me, hearing his story, hearing your story, it's like there was something different about this. As worldly as y'all might have been, right, in the world, it was obvious that there was something different about it. What was the factors that you said, nah, man, this is different? Like,
I guess we had things in common, and that he was, in a way, as best as he could be, loving towards me. You know, now that I know what true love is, but he was being loving towards me, and he was being nice to me, and I hadn't experienced that. You know, all the other people that I had in my life just wanted one thing, and or, you know, just use me or whatever, use me and abused me, and he wasn't like that.
Yeah. Do you think it was in part due to the fact that y'all had to build a friendship before y'all went into a relationship? Do you think that might have had something to do with it?
Possibly, but I mean, he was my drug dealer as well, because I would buy weed from him. So yeah, we did hang out, and there's just something about him. If you know Camilo, he's just somebody that you're attracted to.
Yeah.
He's I always said he was the life of the party.
I understand.
I always said he was the life of the party. You know,
Cue the slow jams.
Yeah, I know. Whether he sees it in himself or not, he's just, there's something just attractive.
Yeah.
About him.
I agree. I could only joke around like that with Camilo and Daniel the Chameleon and Casey.
But yeah, he definitely, you know, showed me something that I hadn't seen in any other man.
Yeah.
But kept me going for a good while, and you know, that was all through after high school. I was going to college. I was trying to, you know, get my life in order, sort of say, you know. I was still out there partying, still out there. I had a job still. I was going to college. My mom had it, you know, drilled into us. You're going to go to college. You're going to get a degree. You're going to do well for yourself. You know, I want you to, you know, be an independent woman, so to say. And so I was for it, you know. And
what was you going to college for?
I was trying to get my associates in applied science. I ended up getting it. I ended up finishing college in Corpus. And then, you know, I was with Camilo and other people messing around still, kind of. And then, you know, he got stabbed, just like you said.
Which I was going to ask, were you there when he got stabbed? Like
I wasn't.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I was not. I didn't have any money, I guess, at that point. I don't know what happened. I must have spent all my money. But I couldn't go to that concert. For whatever reason, I couldn't go. But I remember driving right by the concert because I was like, dude, everybody's going to get out. I'm going to go drive by there. And I missed it, like, just by a matter of seconds.
Oh, wow.
And there was nobody out yet, so I was like, whatever. I'll just go, do whatever I'm going to do. And then shortly after, like maybe 10 minutes after, I get a phone call. Hey, he got stabbed. Come over here. And
you're one of the people that got let in that he was able to talk to, right?
Yep.
Like he said,
okay.
You could talk to like 4 people, whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking he was gone. Like, I was gonna lose him. Like
You
in
didn't
my
have
head.
no kids though.
No, at that
Okay.
point we didn't have any kids. You know, he had been wanting to have kids for the longest time, and I told him, "Nah, you don't. You have a daughter. You don't even take care of. I don't have no kids with you."
Yeah.
But you still had like some strong feelings for him.
Yeah, yeah. I loved him. I love him. But at that point I was like, dude, like he's gonna die. Like I
you
didn't
thought
know.
you were there to see him die.
Yeah,
or to
and he just looks so like white, like not his regular color, and I was like, this is serious. And so they took him after that, and then I ended up seeing him.
So we
Later on.
of course we know Camilo didn't die.
Obviously.
what
Praise
if
God.
so in your perspective, I mean, I don't know the word perspective, but in your mind, what would have happened to you would he had passed that night? Where would you be? Let's say he
Honestly,
would have passed that night. Where would you be today, or what would have happened from there?
So prior to that, I was still messing around. You know, I had maybe another dude on the side that I was talking to because I wasn't real serious about committing to him. But at that point, I was like, oh my gosh, like I think I really love him. Like it really cemented in my brain, like I love him. If I lose him,
So you felt that at that moment.
yeah, I was like, that's just gonna be horrible, and I probably would have took me a very long time to get over the fact that I lost him, but knowing myself at that point, I probably just would have picked up and found somebody else. I mean, I don't know how long it would have been, but I probably would have.
Anywhere in that time did you think, Jesus, God, help us, help?
Nope.
Nothing of that.
No.
No. Okay.
No. And at that point, I hadn't really gotten heavily involved in any other kinds of drugs. I was still just drinking a lot, and smoking a lot.
So middle school, high school, college, same kind of life, just maybe even more liberty in the dynamic of worldliness and things of that sort. Where does the transition into San Antonio happen?
So he comes up here, obviously, and I'm still trying to finish up my schooling and get some kind of experience in the field, in the healthcare field. And so he comes up here, and I said, I gotta be down here for a little bit, to get some experience. Because of course I'm still of that mindset, like I still gotta get my independence as far as an independent woman, get some kind of thing going for myself. And so I wait a few months, and then I move up here to San Antonio. And at that time, I was working for another law firm and doing collections. Not really making that much money, but compared to Corpus, I made double the amount of money that I was making there. And it was good money. And so I was kind of focused on that, but I was still partying with Camilo and his friends. No kids.
Okay.
I'm just partying, drinking. And at that point, I started getting into some more harder drugs, mushrooms, ecstasy.
With Camilo. Because of him.
Yes.
So he was providing the stuff for you.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the one that introduced you to all that?
Influencer.
Yeah.
Major influencer.
Now we know the truth.
The things you do for the men you love.
Whoa.
But of course, I could have said no, y'all. Come on.
Hey, let's address that. You could have said no.
I could have said no. All of those things that I did, but I never did.
Camilo's what I do. Like, hey, man, I just sell the
Give
stuff.
me some credit.
I just sell the stuff. You're the one that's doing it.
Yeah. Well, at some point in my life, I decided that I wasn't going to do drugs anymore. I had tried to get a job, and they were going to do a hair follicle test.
Oh.
And I was like, dang, hair follicle. Can't pass that. That's not going to happen. So I didn't even go. Like, I just totally turned down the job. And then, so I ended up deciding that I wasn't going to smoke, and I wasn't going to smoke as much.
That's here in San Antonio.
Yeah. But I still was smoking. And all this time, we're doing well for ourselves still.
So you wasn't smoking like every day?
I wasn't smoking every day. I wasn't, I think I was still drinking almost every day and everything. But I wasn't smoking. And then shortly after that, we had a family situation happen where one of my nephews had a medical situation, and he was hospitalized. And I saw him in the hospital, and they had him all drugged up. And he had always, I remember him saying when he was younger, like, I don't want to do drugs. I see what drugs do to you, and not to me, but to people, and I don't want to do drugs. And I remember seeing him in the hospital and thinking, he doesn't even want to do drugs. But look at the way he is because they're giving him drugs. And here I am putting drugs in my body to get to that level. Doesn't quite add up, you know? And so I kind of, you know, put that in my head and decided, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be smoking. I'm not going to smoke no more. And I remember, you know, crying out to God when that was happening.
Oh, wow.
Going all the way to Corpus to be with my family. And like, God, you got to do something. Like, help him. And I remember praying the prayers that I knew to pray, which are Catholic prayers.
Yeah, Our Father,
Hail Mary.
Yeah.
As best as I could pray them, driving, speed.
Repeating them over and over.
And just, you know, asking God to help him.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, God, I'll do whatever, you know those prayers you pray.
Yeah.
And so I ended up coming back, and I think I smoked once or twice after that. But I after that, I never really wanted to smoke after that. And Camilo would still smoke, and he would still party. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. It's getting overrated. So
Never progressed to meth or anything like that.
no, I never progressed. I tried coke once in high school, and I didn't like it. Oh, and the thing that I forgot to mention in high school too, I got pretty bad. Stealing. I was stealing in high school. I was actually stealing drugs for my boyfriend.
Oh.
Stealing from him?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I was
okay.
stealing for him.
Oh, stealing for him?
wow.
I was stealing from a close family member.
Oh, okay.
So pretty big amounts to give to my boyfriend.
What, weed?
No, coke.
Oh, wow.
What was he doing with it? What would he do?
Snorting
He
it.
just
And
snort it?
unfortunately,
He wasn't trying to make any money off of it?
no, him and his brother were doing it. And unfortunately,
Oh,
I
wow.
feel bad about that situation because I don't know if he had already been involved in that
Yeah.
prior to me, or if
Yeah.
I was the one who got him involved
Yeah.
in that, or what.
Yeah, we affect people's lives, man. Obviously, you
By
know,
our decisions,
tremendously.
yeah.
So here you are. You're done smoking, doing drugs, whatever. Where does the first baby come?
So I started noticing that, my family members were getting older. One of my aunts was very sick, and she was going to pass pretty soon, or seemed that way. And I had already told Camilo, like, I don't want to have any kids with you unless we're married or we buy a house. Because for some reason in my head, I thought, we buy a house, it's a commitment,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. You're settled down.
Yeah, and so, of course, he chose the buying a house option.
Yeah.
So we decided that we bought a house, and then we had my son a year later. At that point, I hadn't been smoking. My son was priority. I really wasn't drinking as much. I wasn't partying as much. I remember the day that I found out that I was pregnant, we went out to the club, but I didn't drink. I didn't smoke, nothing,
Praise God.
And that was it. Like,
At that point, you and him are just you and him.
Yep.
Like you had already made that decision. Like,
yeah.
Me and him is just
Once I got to
serious.
San Antonio, I was done.
Okay.
I was not going to be messing around with any guys or anything like that. I figured, dude, if he catches me, I'm going to be in big trouble.
Yeah.
I went to lunch with some guys from work, like not as a relation.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they wanted that or not,
Yeah.
whatever. But I went to lunch with them. And then there was a guy from high school that he actually helped me get the job that I was working at. And I would meet up with him. And of course, Camilo didn't know all of that because I hid that from him. But I knew, like, if he was to catch me doing anything more serious, like, I figured in my head, I was going to be in big trouble. I was going to have to go back home. And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my head, I felt like if I had to go back home, I was a failure.
Yeah.
Like, I failed.
Yeah.
Although now looking back.
And this is that, and the house you bought was the one that y'all were at when I met y'all.
Yes.
That big house.
Yes. We had a nice home, nice 2-story home. 3-bedroom. It was a nice, very
Yeah, I
nice
remember
home,
it
nice
was-
subdivision.
Yeah.
We had a boat.
Yeah.
I had 2 college degrees. I had gone to school again. I finished my second degree, my bachelor's, and I right before I had Adam, my son, and I thought I had made it. I thought I did really well for myself. I was making good money.
So you're content. I mean, at that point, you're content. I mean, you're settled. You're content, and then you have Adam, right?
Yep.
And then a few years. I mean, so life just progresses like normal. Everything's good.
Yeah.
Camilo's treating you good. Y'all are just living life. You're not married.
Nope.
And then what? Alyssa comes along.
So I get pregnant with Alyssa, and shortly after I'm pregnant with Alyssa, I start noticing things change. Of course, at that time, there had been things that had happened in Camilo's life where he had tried several times to get Mari back in the picture, his daughter back in the picture, and every single time it failed for one reason or another. And I remember him coming home, and after a counseling session, of course, he can go into all of that more later on or whatever, but he came back from a counseling session, and he's like, she just shut me down. Like, we're done. Like, there's no more. Like, I don't know that I'll ever get her back or what. And so, of course, that was something that had, affected him. And then shortly after that, Adam was maybe like a year or two old, and maybe not even a year or two. But his sister died, and then that affected him. And, of course, it affected us as a whole. And so those two things affected our
relationship.
Yeah, because he was involved in all this stuff. He was drinking. And while I was pregnant with Alyssa, like I said, I started noticing different things.
Was it
happen.
meth at the same time too? At that time,
I didn't know that at that point.
but it is.
It is.
It
Yeah,
was okay.
It was, because later on, after he tried to come back home, he mentioned that to me, that that's what he was involved in, and I knew that there was something going on. I knew that women's intuition or something, like things had changed drastically, not from a, like, you get in your normal routines and
Could you tell from like his physical appearance or anything like that?
No, but a few times, because I would go visit my family pretty regularly, and a few times I had come home and he was just like a zombie. Like, he was just not himself. Like, I'd be talking to him and he would not even, like, it would seem like he didn't even know I was there. And, like, Adam would be like, "Daddy, Daddy," and he just, like, in a zone or something. It was just weird. And so I remember telling my family, like, something's up. Something's not right. Like, he has a chick on the side, or he's involved in some kind of drugs that I don't know. Like, I just know something's up. And I remember one New Year's, I was pissed because he had asked if he could do some coke at the house, and I was like, I don't want that stuff in here. And little did I know that he had already been involved in all that for quite some time. So
when I and so maybe I'm missing a gap here, but when I met y'all at the revival, y'all weren't together.
no.
Was it all that led to y'all separation? Okay.
Yeah, so he left. I was pregnant with Alyssa. I was 7 months pregnant, and he left. I was pretty frustrated. And
Like, I had a fight and he split, or he just one day vanished?
Well, I'll tell you the story. I was 7 months pregnant with Alyssa. I was frustrated. Like, he was not home. He hadn't been home. Like, what's up, dude? Like, I'm trying to, like, in our relationship, it was like we just never really talked about stuff that was bothering us. And never opened up about stuff like that. And so then at some point I got frustrated, and I was like, what's going on? Like, what's the deal? And so I remember asking him, and he's like, I'm fine, whatever. Like, he didn't want to come out and tell me. He's like, I just need to get my stuff together, and I think I'm going to leave. And I was like, what? Like, why are you going to leave? And he's like, I just need to get my stuff together, and I can't do it here. And I was like, nah, you're going to get into it even worse. I don't know what you're involved in, but you're going to get deeper into it if you leave. And I remember telling him that. And so I think it was like a few days later or something like that, I ended up going through his email because I had his email password. And he didn't know that, but I went through his email, and I found that he had signed a lease for an apartment, and he was going to be moving out in a few days. And so I remember telling him, like, that night that I found out, I was like, just get the heck out of here now. Like, I don't want you here then. If you want to leave, you don't want to be here, leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, he left. Like, he didn't leave. He took a few things, and he left.
But he's dealing, so at this point, so I'm trying to think, he's dealing with the drug addiction plus the murder of his sister. And then, of course, probably family issues, things of that sort. So it's all that kind of like culminating together, building this perfect storm of stuff.
Yep. Yeah. And so he leaves, and then, of course, there's all this confrontation. And one day I come home from work, and mostly everything's gone. You know, my bedroom is not the bedroom that it was. You know, we had some pretty nice furniture and nice things in the home.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a bed and a nightstand and a dresser, and it was just big old bedroom, but empty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
He left a good amount of stuff, but, you know, it was just, you could feel the emptiness in it.
Where does the salvation, are you crying out there? I mean, for God now, how do you get in contact with, or what happens at this point? I mean, where does salvation or Pat?
You're still pregnant, right?
Yeah, I'm still pregnant.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still pregnant. He tries to come. So the whole time I'm pregnant, I'm worried that he's not going to be around for the baby to be born. And so 2 weeks before my daughter's born, he comes back. And, of course, we've been talking off and on, and most of it was arguing. But at some point, he, I don't know, starts to come around or something. I don't know what happened. And so he comes back home, or I think there was some drama that he needed to come back home. He was going to hide out or whatever. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so he comes back home, and I think it's going to work out, right? And for some odd reason, I don't know. I have the baby. He's around, have the baby. And I'm thinking that, this baby's going to fix everything, you know. Who doesn't want to be around for their baby, you know?
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, he's gone again. We go through this whole set of accusations and grilling and just driving me crazy. And I'm here trying to take care of this newborn and this, 2-year-old, and just like, being another mom, a new mom again, and just like all this stuff. And he's there just on me.
Yeah.
And
But
it's that vicious cycle that you came from, right?
Yeah, and it was a very verbally abusive situation, mental abuse, abusive situation. But he takes off. Again, I think I ended up leaving because I was going to go visit my family, but he takes off, and so I was like, whatever. At that point, I was like, maybe it's better that he's gone. Maybe I can just get my stuff together and just figure it out. Like, at least I'll have some kind of relief. And so he takes off, and he's out there doing. And then I start finding out from other people all the stuff that he's involved in, and all this. I find out that he has this chick with him, and like all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, what? And so, of course, I'm talking to my friend at work. We're real close, and she's telling me, go get a lawyer. I'm like, okay. I guess, that's the thing that you're supposed to do, because we had the house together. The truck was in my name and all that. So I go get a lawyer. They can never serve him. They can't find him, whatever. I talk to my family, of course, because me and my family are super close. They know everything. I told them everything that had happened, all the stuff that we were involved in and everything. And they're like, just come back home. And I'm like, how am I going to come back home? I have a house here. My job's here. Like, how am I just going to up and leave? Like, but the whole time still, I'm like, my kids still need their father. Like, I know they need their father. Maybe he's not the best father, but that's their father.
Yeah.
And I didn't see any reason why they shouldn't see him. So I was like, that's not going to help the situation. And so I decided to stay up here. And, of course, Pat and I have always been really close. I love Miss Pat.
Hey, Miss Pat.
Yes. Love you, Miss Pat. And so, she's never, I don't know, I don't want to say gotten after me or anything like that, but she's always been very loving towards me.
Supportive.
Yes, supportive. And, she might not have liked everything that had happened, and maybe some of the decisions I made were not the best decisions, but, she's always been there for me if I needed her to. And so I would still stay in touch with her. And, of course, at that point I had the kids, and so she was, helping me with that.
Praise God.
And I would go over there all the time as much as I could because I didn't have anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Had my cousin here, and that was it. And I would see my cousin. But she was the one who I mostly relied upon. And of course, when Camilo was telling me he was going to leave, they had already been ministering to us as much as they could and telling us, like, y'all should come to church, y'all should come to church. And so I remember him telling me he was going to leave, and I was like, no, we should go to the church. And he's like, nah, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to go over there. And so at some point, I finally just, I see him coming to the church, and I see that there's some minor changes in him. And I was like, well, maybe I should go by myself. Maybe I should go to the church. And so I, of course, Pat was like, yeah, I'll take you. Let's go. And so I come, and I decide that, I've already tried the lawyer thing. Mm-hmm. I already tried talking to my friends and my family. And, I wasn't drinking and all of that anymore because I was involved with my kids, and nursing and all of that. But I decided that what did I have to lose,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe God really could help me. And so I came to the church, and I decided that I don't even remember what they were preaching, but something in me tugged at my heart, and I just came to the altar.
Mm.
Praise God.
I came to the altar, and I remember crying,
Mm-hmm.
just crying wholeheartedly, letting it all out and asking for God to help me.
Mm.
And asking
Amen.
With a sincere heart, I've tried everything.
Mm-mm.
God, you are going to have to get involved because I don't know what else to do. And so I came, and I remember coming. I remember it being different than any other church I had ever stepped in. I had only been in the Catholic church before, but I knew this was not the Catholic church.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the people coming, talking to me, hi, how are you doing? The men, they were very nice and everything. They, helped me get my stuff and everything. And they just basically took everything. They took the baby, the carrier and everything. That's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
Even people outside in the world, you'll be struggling trying to get things falling and everything. And they're just whatever, and just leave you to it. Nobody's going to help you out there. But everybody in the church came, was just helping me. And I was like, this is weird, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just came, and I tried to come to every service that I could, even though I lived on the other side of town. I came, and I came to Bible study whenever I could. Meanwhile, Camilo and I are still going through it. We're still arguing, but I'm listening to the sermons, and I'm counseling with my pastor. At that time, it was Pastor Will. Shout out, Pastor Will.
Shout out, William. For real.
And your faithfulness. And I just remember, him telling me, and I tell this to all the ladies all the time, don't worry about what he's doing. Focus on God.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on God.
Amen.
And that's what I did. I just came to every service, read my Bible. Read my Bible every time I could, and tried to understand it. At that time, I was reading New King James Version, and I didn't understand anything. But I was like, okay, God, speak to me, whatever. And I just came to the sermons and the services and just tried to absorb whatever I could. And
So you were coming to church, you get saved, then he starts coming, but then he leaves, right?
yep.
You stay.
Yeah, he left because of me, I'm sure of it.
Okay.
I
But you
stayed.
And you stayed. So you came first, he came, then he left, you still stayed.
Yep,
And then
I stayed.
So you're
Was you
believing
starting
God.
to fill that void that you was always trying to fill?
Yeah, honestly, when I came, I was angry. I was bitter. I was hurt. I was broken. I was not who I thought I was going to be at that point, because again, I had built a life for myself, you know. I thought I had made it, you know, in life. But I was broken.
Yeah.
And angry, and through the sermons, through the love of the church, through my counseling, through the reading of my Bible, I started feeling like learning who Jesus was, learning what true love really is, and learning that God loved me.
Yeah.
Amen.
And that no matter what I was going through, God was still there.
Yeah.
And that I had hope.
Yeah.
Amen.
So what got you through what I was going to say earlier was, so he came, leaves, so he comes, you're like, praise God, but then he leaves. What gets you through that?
I just was like, what else do I have? There's nothing else that I can cling to. I can't cling to him. He's not around, and he's not, you know, like he's not in his right mind to even help me.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to at that point. He hated me. And so what else do I have? I have the church, and it felt good to be in the church. It felt good to have the people here helping me. I knew God was helping me. And I knew that the people here loved me, and that God loved me, and that there was hope for the future, that I didn't have to continue in that mindset, or that anger, that bitterness, the brokenness. I could look to the future and what God had in store for me.
You can let go.
And so then, you know, so you're there. And so then, you know, then I meet y'all, right? He comes back. He had just come back when I met y'all. And then I give you that word at that revival. What's going through your head at that point? Because right there, y'all are still totally separate.
Yeah.
But he's here, and I give you that word. What's going through your head now?
So I had been praying, obviously, for God, because, you know, and my counseling pastor would tell me, like, God's going to bring you somebody. You need help, right, obviously, to raise these kids. God's going to bring you a godly man, whether it's Camilo or whether it's somebody else. God's going to bring you somebody. And so you just need to continue praying in that. And so that's what I would pray. And I would, you know, continue praying in that. And I remember that we would go through stuff all the time. And sometimes it would be good, sometimes it would be bad. But I remember one time things were going good, and I was like, praise God. Well, right shortly after, you know, the devil's around. And then I get another phone call, and he starts telling me stuff, whatever. And I'm like, what in the world? Hang up. I'm there praying in my room, and God, where are you? Like, I don't see you. Like, I thought you were there. Now I don't see you. You know, and you hear people talk about that still small voice. And I heard that still small voice. I heard God tell me, be patient. And I remember like freaking out because I had never experienced anything like that before. And I was like, was that God? Like, did I really hear God? Like, yeah, right, whatever. Right. Kind of just blew it off. And I was like, okay, whatever. But I remember praying shortly after that, if that was you, God, confirm that for me. And so the next day's revival, and here comes Pastor Luis giving me the word. And I remember the word was, be patient. Like, God wants you to be patient. You might not see what he's doing behind the scenes, but he's working it out for you. And so that was my confirmation that God, that was God, and that he was working things out for me. And so later on, that was, you know, a revival, and between services, somehow God worked things out somehow. But I was with one of the ladies from the church. We went to lunch, and I was going to go to the movies right after that. And Camilo starts blowing on my phone, bugging me. And, of course, I had been praying, God soften his heart, like, so I can tell him what's been on my mind. All this time that we had been separated, I'd been trying to write him letters and give him letters, and I would never give them to him because his girlfriend would answer the door or something stupid. He would make me mad, and I would just tear him up or whatever. And so I remember praying God soften his heart so I can tell him. And so during that time when he was telling me all this stuff, he's like, we need to meet up. And I'm like, fine, whatever. And I figure he's going to tell me all this stuff. And so we meet up, and he starts telling me, and I was like, just shut up already. I love you. And I just start telling him all the stuff that I had been wanting to tell him. And he just kind of just like stops, like stops messing with me and just lets me just tell him everything that I had been wanting to tell him. And so to me, that was God answering my prayer, that God had softened his heart enough so that I could tell him everything that I had been wanting to tell him all this time. And so he was like kind of taken back by that, but not really receiving it because, of course, we still had a lot of trust issues and things like that. But shortly after that, we start counseling with Pastor Will and talking with him. And I guess God really did soften his heart enough to where he's like, yeah, let's work things out. And I think, 2 weeks after that, we were getting married.
Yeah, because I remember I did the revival. Then we're about to transition, me and William, and it was a quick transition. And the very last thing William did right before we transitioned in and him out was he married y'all.
Yeah. And that was the thing that we talked about. Like, if we're going to get married, we need to get married quick. Because we want Pastor Will to marry us. Yeah. And if that's going to be the case, then we need to do it now. Yeah. And mind you, I love this man. But at the time when it was really coming down to it, and it was like, we got to get married, I was like, I don't want to marry you. Because we still had a lot of issues that we had to work through. And I knew that I had been hurt already, and I didn't want to go through all of that again. Yeah. But I knew that I needed to do it right. Yeah. And I needed to have God's involvement. Yeah, and I knew that that's what it was going to take.
And it wasn't easy. I mean, I know it wasn't easy because I was there for y'all's. They got married. So for those of you who don't know, I mean, they got married. I took over the church, and I took on their marriage and their marriage counseling and stuff, and it was all very raw. You know, it was all super raw, very raw emotions. I mean, we can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
We can laugh about it now, man, but it was not a laughing matter back then, man. No. And I mean, I don't even want to go into all that right now, but the miracle that God has, the miracle, I can't say enough about the miracle of what Christ has done in this couple, and it's just, you know, it's just crazy. It's awesome. Like you are in awe of what God has done, and it wasn't easy. It was a lot of work.
But God can do miracles.
Yeah, amen.
I see the men in the church, and I see the way they walk in.
Yeah.
And I can see that if God can fix my husband, God can fix anybody.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If God can give, a single mom, because that's what I was at that point, any kind of hope, God can, God gave me hope. He fixed my broken heart, and he can do that for anybody.
And one of the things, too, that I would like to emphasize here is that, it was a lot of work on their behalf. Yeah, Jesus was involved, and God did a miracle, but it was a lot of work on their behalf, on Lulu's behalf, on Camilo's behalf, to be able to trust not just his wife, but trust a man to help him, in the dynamic of marriage and life that he was believing God for, to be able to let some man speak into his life and help him. And I mean, it was, I don't know, we were talking about this the other day. I don't know if it was you. I think we were talking to both of y'all when y'all were at my house, and I was like, was it y'all that I had y'all on a regular regimen of marriage counseling?
Probably, yeah.
It was like every Sunday, it was just like, okay, guys, just plan every Sunday. We're having marriage counseling. Yep. Like, that's just set. And it was just put on your calendar, and it was just every Sunday, it was just marriage counseling.
Yeah. And so, like, that in itself is a miracle, because he would never let anybody speak anything into him. Yeah. And so for him to allow you to speak into his life, and for him to take that and apply it, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I will be in my pastor's office as long as I need to, for as many times as I need to. You know, I don't care. Like, y'all can make fun of me if I stay in there long, whatever. I don't care. But, you know, we're getting stuff done.
And it wasn't easy even for, and you know, so people look at Camilo and Lulu and they're like, they don't see the work that it took for them to be where they're at today. And people see them as these leaders, which they are, great leaders. They've proven that. But it wasn't just something that happened. And this is what I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast series, was that, you know, it took a lot of humbling on his behalf. It took a lot of patience on her behalf, and it took a lot of God dealing with him to get him to a point where he could accept that this was for his well-being. Like, it wasn't somebody trying to get over him or something like that. And for God to move in that dynamic, and you'll never understand the seriousness of what it is that transpires unless you were there, you know. And so I tell people, like you know, they see Camilo and Lulu and it's like, dude, but you don't understand like what he had to go through, not just in general, but what he had to go through in the dynamic of humbling himself to allow God to move him and to get him to the place where he's at today. And, you know, this couple, this marriage, this family. And that's what people miss when they see these great leaders, these pastors. They don't see that work that they put in, that it wasn't easy. You know what I mean? It wasn't no small task. It was hard. It was hard for her. It was hard for him. It was hard for me because I'm having to gain his trust, you know, as I guide him and lead him forward. And it wasn't easy. Like, it wasn't an easy thing. And it's a miracle to see where they're at today, and then, you know, to see the progression, and then eventually here they are, and then get to a place where it's like they answer the call. Talk about that.
So, of course, my husband had told you and myself that he had felt a calling, and of course, I was like, I don't know about that. Like, you know, I see the work that is required in a church. Who am I? Like, I'm nobody, you know? Like, how am I going to help somebody? How am I going to help run a church or whatever? Like, there's no reason why I should be in that spot. Like, I never felt that. I started praying, you know, asking God, like, is that really where you want me? But I think more than anything, it was my own self-doubt that was still keeping me from being aware that God was actually calling me. But shortly after I started praying all of that, my brother gets into some more trouble. Mind you, my brother's an awesome brother, but he's been through a lot in his life, and he was in and out of jail, prison, served a lot of time, and this last time he was not wanting to go back. And mind you, he had already done 16 years, and he was going to have to go back and do some more time, and he knew he was going to have to do a lot of time. But I remember getting the phone call that he was in jail and that he was looking at some time. And I remember God tugging on my heart, like, you are the person that are going to help these people to keep them out of that place, to keep them from going back to prison. And that's who I need you to be. Not who you want to be, but who I need you to be. Yeah. And so I remember going into pastor's office and telling him, like, you know, this is what happened, and I'm ready. Like, we're gonna do this. I need to be that person.
Yeah. Amen.
And that they did. And they have, you know, I mean, One of the things that we always say as pastors is like we send out our best, and would we have it our way? Like, we wouldn't send out people because they benefit us, benefit the church, and I can really say that sincerely with all my heart about Camilo and Lulu. Like, it was bittersweet. It was so difficult to let them go because they were such a big part. And I mean, and I've discipled people before, couples. They were such a intricate part of my life, of my wife's lives, in my wife's life, my kids' life, their kids, the church. It was such a sacrifice to release this couple into the harvest, into the ministry. And and like I was like, God, keep him here as long as possible.
I remember my very first Bible study was at y'all's house.
That's right.
And it was the first sober fun I've ever had.
Yep.
Because we had a Bible study and Camilo was up there. He was, teaching us some word. And after that, we played that little game, gestures. Yeah. And man, I had so much fun. And then I went back to jail.
Went back to jail. And the last part of this thing is so they answered the call and coming to that realization that they are called, not only that, but proving it through their own ministry and how they ministered here in the church, not their marriage, their family, things of that sort as well. And then now, they're out there, laying the groundwork for their church, pioneering in Live Oak, and to see where they've come from, where to hear their stories, then in the church, dynamic of being new converts, and what God has done in their life to where they're at today. I mean, that is just phenomenal. You know what I mean? And that is the hope of what God does, what Jesus does through a surrender life. Camilo said it in his podcast, Lulu said it today, to surrender your entire life and to see what comes out of that. This is what it's about. This is what it is. This is what God does. Aside from that, Lulu said it earlier. She was like, I don't have nothing else besides that. Like, I don't have nothing else besides this. Like, it's Jesus, that's it. And you know what? That's true. And this is the greatness that can come out of our life. And it sounds very crass to say this, and I've said it before, but it's like, it's not. It's like, a drug addict. You know what I mean? Camilo said it, a loser. Listening to Lulu's testimony, how she lived her life, how she viewed life, no father, the dynamic of worldliness, promiscuity, and then look the greatness of God into a couple's life, and then here they are in the harvest field now doing something for God.
Amen.
And that's the hope.
Yes.
That's the ultimate hope. And aside from that, there is nothing else. Aside from that, there is salvation, Jesus Christ, repentance, living for God. Yeah, God brings out His greatness, but aside from that, what do we have? There's nothing. The world offers you nothing, takes everything, and gives you nothing in return.
Yep.
And here is the perfect example. And there's many other examples, but this is a prime example of that dynamic. When I deal with people about drug addiction, when I deal with people about marriage problems, I always say, and I've said this before, I'm like, dude, talk to Camilo and Lulu. Like, God can do a miracle in their marriage, relationship, drug addiction, talking about crazy stuff. God can help you, man. You have no idea what these people went through, and look what God has done. And that's the hope that we're trying to convey. Is there anything further that you want to add, Miss Lulu, as we close this out?
I guess the only thing that I like, being married, of course, has its own troubles, but it's a continual work in progress. You know, and when we were first married, it was hard. That first year was hard, but God got us through it. And the one thing that I always kind of cling on to is I'm not trusting in my husband. I'm trusting what God can do in my husband, because you know, man will fail you, but God will never fail you.
Amen.
And just continue to have faith. Seek God with all your heart, and He will get you through it.
Powerful.
Amen.
And with that said, I mean, what the scripture that comes to mind, 2 Corinthians 5:17, you said, in what God can do in my husband. Whoever is in Christ is a new creation. You know, that's the main thing of what Christ does, is when we're surrendered, when we're in Christ, we become something new, and we can experience the blessing of that newness through what Christ does inside our lives.
Yes.
And that was a powerful testimony, powerful.
Yes.
I pray that you benefit and receive hope from this as you watch this, and give us comments, drop a like, subscribe, whatever, share this. Like I said before, if you know anybody that's struggling, I mean, marriage, family, addiction, whatever situations, let them know there's hope. Show them this.
Yes.
Refer them to us. Let us know.
I just want to say that these two testimonies with Miss Lulu and Camilo, I mean, both were trying to fill that void that they could never fill. God can fill that void. He's the only one that can fill that.
Yeah.
So drop us a comment. If you need, reach out to us. We're here.
Yeah.
That's what our foundation is for.
Yep. Choosing Hope Foundation.
The Choosing Hope Foundation.
If you want to partner with us to contribute to the Choosing Hope Foundation, I mean, everything that comes in for the Choosing Hope Foundation is used to further the work of the foundation, which is to help parolees, people in prison, homeless people. I mean, we've worked with, and you'll hear the testimonies, homeless people that have come into a church, drug addicts, battered women, things of that sort.
People
That's what
from
it's
all
for.
sides of the block.
And that's, if you want to partner with us in that vision to help those people, by all means, be a part of that. But that concludes this podcast. A powerful testimony from Lulu. Thank you for coming on. And we're going to sign out. My name is Luis Perez, which will breach, a.k.a. Demon Killer. And here's my co-host,
Casey Case.
Another
Case. Time. Shout out to 510 Architecture and Design.
Yeah.
The Chameleon. He's got you. Just
Martinez, the Chameleon. And we are signing out. See you on the next one.